I got my book back! Actually, it's not yet back to me. Notice the background is different. I'm not at home. I am in Switzerland. I took a 9-hour train to get this shot of me with this book. It's a little proof that, you know, I read the thing first before I started talking about it on the internet. Anyways, AI can't do that. I would like to see AI buy a second-class train ticket, get snacks, eat those snacks, judge people on the train, look at some pretty sceneries, thereby fueling 2 countries' economies just to get this shot of me with this book. Yeah, I cannot be replaced by AI. Anyways, he is still in page 118. Yeah, I'm never getting it back. By the way, the really cool thing about this book, and I didn't get to mention it before, is that a lot of the information here actually comes from information that you would otherwise need to pay for because they're from journal articles, so published journal articles. So there's a lot of paywalls to be able to access the information in this book. And it's kind of crap because it's not like the scientists working on those projects and those articles get compensated for the subscription payments that you pay to access those papers. So I don't know what this business model is, but you can buy this book. I am in no way getting paid to keep bringing this book up. It's just a really good book if you're into the whole, oh, I want to learn about the world and about people kind of vibe, if you're into that vibe. So yeah, so the thing about this is, in the last video I kind of bamboozled you guys towards the end, where I said, like, I don't know, around 5 main facts from this book, and you can do a little review on that if you want. Otherwise, let's get deeper into it. That's what she said. Cool fact number 1, bitches, is that animals first reproduced by laying eggs, right? And then about 1 to 2 million years ago, a retrovirus inserted its DNA into one or probably a few of these animals. Inside this DNA is the genetic information that makes this temporary organ called the placenta, which you probably should have heard of in school or at some point in your life. So this placenta is really cool because it allows nutrients to move one way and waste the other way, which might sound unimpressive, but the fact that this placenta can exist inside an animal's body without a destructive biological response is the impressive part. The thing is that when our body gets infected by a virus or really anything, is that our body tries to get rid of it by raising our body temperature, you know, that's what a fever is, to kill it, or by sneezing it out to get rid of it. So sneezing it at people, lol. But a long time ago, an animal or a version of us way in the past got attacked by a retrovirus that has the gene to make this protective sac in their body, and their body decided to host this thing instead of getting rid of it. That's crazy and random as fuck. Or probably what happened was that, okay, the animal got infected by this virus and they got sick, but then the virus's DNA is still in the body and that genetic information is inside. So this is something that I can probably check later. This thing where you got DNA information from something else is something called horizontal evolution. What we usually think of with evolution is that you reproduce and there are some mutations during this process that ultimately leaves you with a different version of your species. And these mutations get more noticeable the more generations pass by. So you might not notice such a big difference between you and your offspring if you're a family person. But the more generations that pass by, you can see that, oh, this version of this human is much more different from us right now. But with horizontal evolution, nobody had to do any reproduction. And we basically get new DNA information by some virus just going inside of us. That's what he said, or she said, they said. So here's the second part of this question. How does this genetic information allow the placenta to exist inside the body with zero penalty? There is also another gene that basically allows this virus to attach itself to our cells without triggering an immune response. That's basically what happens. Thanks to this gene and thanks to the virus infecting us a long time ago, humans as well as a fuck ton of other animals, mammals specifically, make this fetus as a place for their young ones to grow stronger until it's really ready to go out into the scary world. Next fact, bitches. Another cool feature that humans obtain through viruses is making memories. One of these viruses that infected us a long time ago have this gene that makes tiny protein bubbles for spreading its genetic material all over the place, which sounds kinky as fuck. But this is basically how our neural pathways operate, sending proteins all over the place and transferring them between neurons. The fact that we all share these developed properties really makes you realize how we're all very similar with each other, and even with other animals. We all come from the same space rock, don't we? So why do we spend so much time being dicks over small differences when we share 99.99% of our general human experience? Which brings me to one of the most absurd ways that humans discriminated against themselves because of a teeny tiny biological difference. And I'm not even talking about penis sizes, which would make more sense if humans discriminated against each other based on penis size instead of skin color. You guys realize how many diseases have killed so many people in the history of humanity? Plagues, bruh. Our history wasn't based on just survival of the fittest. Sometimes it was the lottery of having a gene that randomly boosts your immune system in the presence of a disease. On the other hand, if you had some mutation that made your cells seem useless to an incoming virus or bacteria, then you also pretty much won't get bothered by these microbes. Whereas in the really shitty case where you have a gene that makes your cells kind of overreact to these foreign bodies, then you're also fucked. So this fact that certain groups of people have genes that make them unbothered or less bothered by diseases was actually exploited by some fairly pale people a few years ago. It turns out that when some assholes were transporting people of all different colors a few hundred years ago and forced them to slave away in their plantations or whatever without giving these people rest and proper nutrition, well then diseases pretty much spread out very easily. And these assholes saw that the more pale slaves they brought in kind of die faster from these outbreaks that happen every now and then. So the demand for colored people increased because they seem to be more sturdy against diseases. There's literally so much to unpack here, but don't lose hope if you're white and you want to be a slave for some reason, if that's a thing you want to do. You know, as long as you eat properly, you can be a sturdy laborer also. This I talk about in my next episode.